Hello, and welcome to another podcast episode of Nourish You with Salima. That's me, if you're new to me. And this week's discussion for the podcast is owning your transition, confidence, resilience, and emotional agility in menopause, navigating change with grace. This is your invitation to nourishment this week. Before perimenopause and the pandemic, I'd always been a confident, self assured person. As well as a wellness advocate, yoga teacher, and coach, I'd always felt that I was in tune with my body and capable of navigating any challenges that would come my way. I trusted my ability to balance my physical health, intuition, emotional well being, and professional life. But everything changed when the world around us began to shift dramatically during the second part of the pandemic for me. And also, that was the time that I started my journey now looking back into perimenopause. To be honest, so it came on very suddenly. And to be honest, until very recently, this feeling of being unsure and disconnected from the confident person I once was always in front of me. And the hormonal changes from this going through this transition of perimenopause and going through the whole transition, um, well, the first two stages at least, premenopause and perimenopause, combined with the stress of living through a global crisis and changing my work. And I had moved areas a few months before the pandemic struck. All left me feeling really uncertain, very vulnerable, and having terrible bouts of anxiety as well as fear, something that I'd never suffered with, lucky enough, up to that point. And my mind and body just no longer felt like it was under my control. I just didn't recognize myself. Some random hot flushes here and there, sleepless nights, aches and pains in my body, and the sudden mood swings made me question my ability to cope and, feeling overwhelmed and at times quite powerless. One of the key things I noticed, as well as the symptoms, was my mental attitude, and my emotional agility was not great. My once strong sense of confidence ended up taking a real dip, and it was during that time that I decided to take a pause from teaching and healing others, and instead turned the mirror onto myself, which is never easy. Emotional agility in menopause, navigating change with grace. This whole weird and wacky ride of this transition into perimenopause and menopause is such a profound transition, as if you're listening to this and going through it, you'll know. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we often find that we're on a roller coaster of mood swings, energy fluctuations, and real moments of self doubt, even how we communicate. And this is where emotional agility becomes rather essential. Instead of resisting these changes or feeling trapped by them, emotional agility allows us to acknowledge our feelings without being consumed by them. Now, there is a picture of the book by Susan David on here because I was at a book signing and I did a workshop with her. She's a great American psychologist, Susan David, and she wrote the book on emotional agility. She describes it then as the ability to experience emotions fully while staying flexible in our responses. In menopause, this means recognizing frustration, sadness, or anxiety as natural responses to change, not as roadblocks, but simply as traffic signals. By meeting these emotions with curiosity instead of judgment, we then bring ourselves to a better position to make empowered choices about our well-being, whether it be through advocating with your physician, advocating at your work, movement, lifestyle shifts, nutrition, breath work, or simply it might be all of those, or simply it might just be giving yourself a little bit more respect and more compassion. Menopause isn't just an ending, but instead a doorway to a new phase of strength, wisdom, and self awareness. And when we cultivate emotional agility, we move through it with resilience, grace, and confidence. So let's get clear about some of the definitions of both confidence and resilience. What is confidence? Well, it's that feeling that you get when you know you can trust yourself to handle things, that you feel capable of handling the situations that are arising, having your own back, knowing your stuff, and whether it's taking on a challenge, speaking up, or just being yourself without second guessing. Confidence is that quiet belief that you can do it, even when things get really tough. Resilience, then, is the ability to bounce back when life knocks you down. It's not about never feeling knocked down, but instead, it's about getting back up and finding your way forward, no matter how many setbacks you face. Trying to stay open and positive, even in the most challenging of instances. So, confidence isn't about knowing it all, and instead, it's about trusting yourself to navigate the unknown. And this is a discussion point when we were meeting for our women's cohort hive with Elena Brower a couple of weeks ago. And this is something that she was talking about is we don't have to have all the answers all the time. And confidence isn't about knowing what comes next, but instead it's trusting yourself to navigate the unknown. What does that look like? Well, for you, that might look like stopping, pausing, and really trying to listen within, like really try and follow where your intuition is taking you to and acting on it. Resilience comes from adapting and growing through challenges, not avoiding them. And emotional agility, well, it is basically the ability to recognize, understand, and regulate your emotions without being controlled by them. Susan says that, well, she describes it as the skill to engage with emotions flexibly, allowing us to make thoughtful choices rather than reacting impulsively. And impulsively is a behavior of the menopause cycle because obviously we experience such fluctuations with our hormones. On the other side of that, when we are able to develop confidence, resilience, and emotional agility all together, we don't just withstand life's challenges, but instead we can grow from them and thrive. Adapting to change, how the pandemic and perimenopause shaped my teaching. It was during the second part of the pandemic, combined with the onset of perimenopause, that really threw me into a period of confusion and self doubt. As I said previously, my energy was really low, and the emotional toll of both challenges made it difficult to keep up with the demands of teaching. I found myself struggling to stay motivated and connect with my students in the way that I had done previously over the last 2 decades. As well as the physical changes of perimenopause, also left me feeling disconnected from my body. While the isolation of the pandemic made it harder to find any sort of sense of normalcy, I felt overwhelmed and out of place and unsure really how to fit my own needs into the demands of my role as a teacher. Adapting with intention, listening to my body and mind, and using the psychology of seeing to envision a different life. After 2 decades of teaching, I knew then, with the way I was feeling, it was time to take a step back and try something different. I recognized that I needed a break to recharge and explore other areas of interest. So, I revisited my background in vision science and psychology and started working in clinical ophthalmology and optical settings. This shift allowed me to blend my passion for wellness with my professional expertise, creating a new perspective that enriched both my personal growth and my teaching approach. It was a refreshing change that reignited my passion and helped me reconnect with a new sense of purpose. Again, having a sense of purpose can also be affected when we're in this cycle of menopause. Understanding the hormonal shifts, the science of perimenopause and menopause. As my body began transitioning through perimenopause, the science behind what was happening became clearer. These hormone fluctuations, particularly the decline in estrogen and progesterone, were causing physical changes that I hadn't anticipated. Mainly muscle loss, bone density issues, aches and pains, and my poor teeth. And a significant drop in energy were just some of the challenges I faced. From a scientific perspective, all these changes made me feel like I was completely losing my grip on the control I once had over my health, and especially my poor mouth and teeth. In addition to the shifts in my hormones, the pandemic's impact on my mental health was profound, especially at that time as I was on my own without a partner or family, just my ducks, nature, and my good neighbours. The isolation, the uncertainty, and the stress of adapting to a new way of life all compounded my feelings of anxiety and self doubt. And moving into a new area just a few months before the first wave of the pandemic struck, I felt completely overwhelmed with no clear way out. As a result, my confidence plummeted, and it seemed like everything I had built up to that point in terms of self trust was unraveling. Reassessing my health and exercise routine, the importance of Pilates, strength training, and yoga conditioning. In addition to the emotional and mental toll, I began to realize that my body's needs had changed. The once intense dynamic yoga practices I had once relied on no longer felt supportive. Instead, I felt I needed something less chaotic, more grounded, a little bit calmer, but also something with a lot of concentration, which led me to incorporate Pilates, strength training, and yoga conditioning into my routine, as well as revisiting some aspects of yin yoga, all of which has really helped to support my body's changing needs. Pilates helped me build core strength and stability, while yoga conditioning improved my flexibility and mental clarity. Both practices were challenging, but in a completely different way, hugely effective, and allowed me to regain control of my body without overexerting myself. I found that these types of exercises not only strengthen my body but also my mind, and they provided a much needed sense of calm and centeredness during a time of emotional instability. Balancing quiet moments and social connection, creating harmony. During this journey, alongside my physical transformation that I am still going through, I realised the importance of balancing quiet moments with social interaction. During the pandemic, the isolation was intense, and I found myself really retreating inward, spending a lot of time in quiet reflection and journaling. And don't get me wrong, I do love spending time on my own. However, not quite the amount that was imposed on us. While this introspection helped me process some of the changes, it also reminded me of the importance of social connection, something I had learnt prior in one of my neuroscience lectures, that human brains are wired to be social and that it helps with longevity. So, despite my desire for solitude, I recognised that reconnecting with others was crucial for my mental health. Re engaging with friends, family, as well as communities of women who are also navigating similar challenges going through the menopause cycle has really helped me feel less isolated and, probably more importantly, given me a newfound sense of connection, belonging, and support. Holistic and scientific approaches to healing, integrating mind and body practices. I have always combined both perspectives from a holistic viewpoint and a scientific viewpoint into my teaching as classes, yoga classes, in my coaching. And I think that's important to embrace different avenues. So I focus nourishing my body with a diet rich in antioxidants, healthy fats, and protein. I've curbed my drinking, it's almost non existent. I've really taken a good hard look at how I can support my stress response. And that means cutting out certain things, it means doing things in a different way, it means using different tools like essential oils and other herbs. On the scientific side, I learned that the type of exercise I was doing wasn't helping with what I needed to prevent bone loss and muscle degradation. And, that's where the strengthening, working, using weights, approaching different practices of fitness, as well as breath work and some Zen practices, um, is really changing my body and is really reducing the anxiety that I was feeling previously. Combining all of these approaches allowed me to regain some of my confidence because I was actively nurturing both my mind and my body. And I was owning my transition, more importantly. Confidence restored, rebuilding a new me. Over time, as I've been embracing these practices and changes in my body, I realized that my confidence wasn't gone. Instead, it had just transformed. The confidence I once had, rooted in certainty and control, evolved into a deeper sense of trust in the process of change. I understood that confidence doesn't always mean feeling strong or in control, but instead, it's about trusting that you will figure it out no matter what comes your way. So, the takeaway for me personally, by embracing and incorporating these different routines and practices, having the balance between quiet moments and social connection, I've rebuilt my confidence on my own terms in a way that feels authentic to the new me. I no longer view, this is probably one of the most important things, that I no longer view the menopause transition as something to fear or resist, but instead as an opportunity to redefine my strength and resilience. Confidence, then, isn't about being the same person I was before. That is what I now realize. Instead, it's about evolving and trusting that the changes happening within me are leading to something more empowered and aligned with who I am now becoming. It is worth mentioning that throughout this weird and wacky ride, I have found that simplicity, structure, and ease has led me to a deeper sense of empowerment and self trust. As I said, confidence doesn't have to mean having all the answers, but instead it's about trusting the journey and knowing that you will find your way eventually. Moving forward now. Moving forward, new projects like pursuing my Pilates diploma and diving a little bit deeper into hormone and health coaching, I am rebuilding my confidence. These opportunities are pushing me to expand my knowledge, refine my skills, and embrace new challenges. Each step I take in these areas is not only enhancing my professional growth, but also reigniting that sense of empowerment and self belief that I thought I had lost. As I continue to grow in these fields, I'm excited to share what I've learnt and learning to inspire others. Thank you for taking the time to listen and to read to this podcast. This Substack is reader supported. To receive new posts and support my work, please consider becoming a free or paid subscriber or making a donation. If you feel this was helpful and you'd like to share, please feel free to share this piece. If you have any comments, please feel free to comment as well. And I hope that you will own your transition. Until we meet again next time, thank you for listening, nourishing you with Salima Valiu.